Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
And let me put my clock on, make sure, because, although I think I have almost nothing to say, I do go on. And thank you for your kind words. And I always feel like my ego is sort of, the Little Shop of Horrors, it had that monster in the basement that said, "Feed me." I always feel like my ego is that down in the basement going, "Feed me." And when you say something nice to me, it goes, "Yeah." And so I'm always a little nervous about it, but appreciate it. So I'm Judith, and I am an alcoholic. And I have 13 years of sobriety. So I was surprised when Lori wanted to be my sponsee because she's got almost twice as much of that, more. But, I'm just the coach, and she has to do the work. So, and that's what I feel about sponsorship is I'm just the coach. It's like physical therapist. The physical therapist has your exercises to do, and if you do them, you get better. And if you don't, they're just the coach. So I will talk a little bit about my how I got to AA. And, when I start usually with a younger crowd, I will sometimes start out by saying, if you saw me walking down the street, you'd think there was a nice little old lady. And you would never know that in my younger years, I was a needle drug user. And I didn't drink then. I was a little bit proud of the fact I didn't drink while I was shooting up. So I got clean, and I was poor, so I didn't have much money to buy alcohol with. And I was a single mom, and I was very depressed, as you might guess, with a poor single mom. And I thought almost every day I would wake up in the morning thinking, how could I kill myself so it would look like an accident? And I none of the ways I thought of seemed sufficiently accidental, luckily. So I continued, and I worked. I sadly, when I did have alcohol, I drank to excess, and I drove while very, very, very drunk with my young son in my car. And I, kind of have some other addictions that I dealt with or didn't deal with. And, eventually, I got a house. It was an era in Seattle when you could buy a house. I'm so grateful. Because when we moved, when my son was 10, we moved into this house when I got divorced. And he had lived in 28 different houses.
Wow.
So I told him, we will stay in this house at least 2 years. And that was almost 50 years ago.
Wow.
So, anyway, he grew up and he left home quite young because we, had a rocky relationship. And really Seattle was too small for both of us. And he wasn't going to leave. So I left, and I went to Japan. I lived there for 4 years, and I was a daily pot smoker when I left, and there's no pot smoking in Japan. So I started drinking sake. And sake is kind of like drinking water, the way I drank it. So I came home after 4 years in Japan with a roaring alcohol addiction. And I came back, and I got a job, and I got some therapy, and I met a man, and we were both old enough to appreciate good people. So, eventually we lived together, and then eventually got married. And I had a responsible job. I met all of my obligations. and I drank regularly. I didn't drink at work, and after a while, I didn't drink during the work week. My work week, my drinking weekend started on Thursday, but anyway, I didn't see any real problem with any of this. I did notice that when I was driving home saying I'm not going to drink tonight, I would continue saying that while I was taking the bottle out of the refrigerator and pouring the glass. And I would be saying that when I poured the next glass, and the next one, and the next one. I'm not going to drink. And I really, at some point, just went, I can't. I stopped for a while. I stopped at one point for 6 months. And I was very proud of myself, and it was a real struggle. And then I thought, well, 6 months, I think I'm okay. And it was New Year's, and I had a drink. And, 10 years later, well, I was not able to stop drinking. I realized that when I was going to retire, I would start drinking like I drank on vacations, which was all day. And, I had a vision of myself as, I don't know where I got this idea, but of a scrawny little old lady sitting at the end of the bar drinking. Probably Dorothy Parker or something like that. And, I did not like that picture. That picture looked really sad to me. And I thought, I have got to figure out why I'm drinking like this and clean up my act. So fortunately, my job provided the employee assistance program, and they would pay for some therapy. So I did telephone interviews of a few therapists, which I recommend them. It's a great way to see who you think you can talk with. And I was selecting somebody who I thought was pretty hard ass, because I knew I had been in enough therapy that I could fake out a young therapist, or at least that's what I thought. So this woman she had a kind of gravelly voice, and that qualified her as hard ass, but also. So, I went to see her, and I told her I really wanted to, figure out what was the deep stuff going on for me and get rid, clean it up so I could drink like a normal person.
Oh.
Good luck, right?
Yeah.
So she took a look at me and said, well, how much are you drinking? And I told her, and, how often, and I told her, and I kind of told her the truth. And she said, well, you could be an alcoholic. Moi? I don't stand under bridges with a bottle in a brown paper bag with you. She said, and I don't find that individual therapy is effective with alcoholics. And so I recommend that you consider treatment. Moi? So go to, Lakeside or Res 12 or something and, get assessed. And at this point, believe me, I am in a state of shock. But I did not want to drink. I wanted to control my drinking. And if that's what it took to control my drinking, okay. So the next day, I stopped at Lakeside Milam on the way home from work. They gave me the little piece of paper with the little check, questions, check boxes. I checked the boxes. I passed with flying colors. I love to pass tests. Unfortunately, that was not a test I really wanted to pass, but they said, yeah, you passed. We've got a place for you. Outpatient treatment starts next week. And I'm going, oh my golly. Well, I'll get clean. I will be able to drink like a normal person. Okay. But the truth is, I stopped drinking that day, June 29th, 2011. And I have not had a drink since then. when we were visiting some people, they were passing out lemonade. They had put gin in their lemonade. The glasses all looked the same, and my host gave me my husband's glass. And I took a drink, and I thought, this doesn't taste like just lemonade. I think I'd better take another taste. And then I said, this isn't lemonade, and I put it in. So my sponsor assured me that I didn't have to start my day count. So, when I came home and told my husband that I was going to go into outpatient treatment, he was shocked. He was buying my wine, and he was shocked. When I told my parents and my son that I was going into outpatient treatment, they were shocked. Nobody knew that I was drinking like I was drinking. Nobody knew that I couldn't control my drinking because, I was not a sloppy drunk. And I had been so barricaded, my feelings were so barricaded from everybody that they didn't really realize that I was barricading them with alcohol and pot. So, I went into treatment. I thought it was going to be really hard, so I went to the library and I got 10 murder mysteries. I figured, in a pinch, I'll just read murder mysteries. And, I got through 2 of them. I think I cried every day. I think I probably lost 10 pounds all in fluids, so it all came back. And, I had to go to AA as a result of that program. You go 3 nights a week, and 2 nights you have to go. And I believe that I probably bitched every single meeting at AA, at the outpatient treatment, about AA and about the God thing. Every single time. 8 weeks, 3 times a week. And but I went because I'm a good girl. I mean, fundamentally, I'm a good girl, and I do what I'm told. If I can't fake it. And so I went, and I got a sponsor because I was told to get a sponsor. And I started working the steps. And the thing about being in the outpatient treatment program was we do the first step basically in treatment. And we had to talk about the effects of alcohol in our lives and sort of go through. And I talked about things that I felt really ashamed of. And I told the truth about stuff in my past. And I felt such a weight lifted off of me. Being a good alcoholic, I wanted more of that. Mm-hmm. So, they said, so work the steps. You get more of it. So I worked the step. I got my sponsor took me through all the way up to the 8th step, I think. And then she left town, which not because of me. And but she did abandon me with the 8th step list. So I found another sponsor. She encouraged me to find another sponsor, finish the steps. So I found another sponsor very quickly, finished working. I think I finished working those steps. And then that sponsor left town. Not because of me. But and that was at 2 years, I remember, because I was going to practice these principles pretty regularly. And so the last Tuesday of the month, they always do the sponsorship. And so it was sponsorship, and I got called on, and dang, I told the truth. My sponsors had left town. My sponsees had left town. I was done with AA. I didn't have a sponsor, and I was done. And I was sitting next to a guy named Greg. And Greg leaned over and he said, so Judith, when are you going to get a sponsor? And, by now, when you're told to do something in AA, it's kind of automatic that you do it. So Saturday, which I was by then going to Saturday Promises, a woman was speaking, and so I liked what she was saying, and I asked her to be my sponsor, and that really was the day that I decided that I was going to go to AA. I was choosing to go to AA. I was choosing to have a sponsor. And this woman is younger than my son. She was been in the military. She has a wife. We don't talk politics because I don't want to know where she is in politics. I kind of can guess, but anyway. But she is one of the wisest people I've ever talked to. And I can just talk to her and tell her what's going on with me. And she, she'll often say, "Have you prayed about it, Judith?" Which, I still have. Somebody in a meeting I was at the other day said that they call their higher power Nancy. Nancy. Well, that makes it very friendly. But my higher power doesn't really have a name. So. But I do, at this point, have a higher power. And I do, when I have to, pray. And what I know about prayer is that I don't even know if there's anybody answering or listening, but the act of prayer is so crucially important. Because that's saying to me, I don't have an answer here. I really need to turn this over and see what the universe can show me. And often what I hear the universe saying to me comes out of your mouths. And and that's good enough for me at this point, really. I feel like I'll take it where I can get it. Yeah. So one of the things, and when I thought about coming and talking, and I've got a few more minutes to go. So that's my story. So that's where I came from and how I got here. And one of the things that's true is I drank and I smoked for, probably 40 years. And I didn't know that it was hurting anybody. I would go fortunately, I got sober before my parents died. My parents lived a long time. And so I was able to go and be there, really be there, be present for a change with them in a way I'd never been before. Because I was always like tapping my foot, tapping my fingers, and I'd get stoned before I went, I'd drink while I was there. I just never was present. I really needed to understand that my drinking really did affect them. Even though they didn't know. They had no way of knowing, but it did affect them. And when I was able to be available to, so lucky to be able to do amends to them face to face. And, my dad's he's a mechanic, and he was a mechanic, and an old Scandinavian guy doesn't talk all that much. So when I said my amends, I formally read my amends to him, face to face, he goes, "Oh, that's okay, don't worry about it." But the truth is, the thing about my dad that I understood is that he really respects people who tell the truth and who own their behavior. And that I apologized to him made a big difference in my life with him, in our relationship. Made a big difference. My son saw me, drunk, drinking, smoking, all that stuff. Learned to do that himself. But when I went into treatment, they had the little family meetings for my husband, and he went and met with the counselors and heard about alcoholism. And afterwards he said, "Mom, I answered all those questions right." I said, well, might consider addressing the problem. And that was the end of that. But about 9 years ago, he said, I haven't had a drink for a while. And he just texted me today. He said, look, I found this app. It tells you how much you save over time by not drinking. So he's not drinking. He's not doing AA. I keep telling him, hey, free therapy. But he's not drinking, and he sees the value, and it's made a big difference in his life. And people do it all different kinds of ways. And I just, I try to remember it's attraction, not promotion. And he's got as far as he's going to go right now. And who knows what else he needs. So that's good too. I only blacked out once in my drinking. And the other day I was thinking, I wonder, I've never heard a normal drinker ever say that sentence. I must be an alcoholic. And, I tried to write down because, I'm old enough, so crucial words sometimes go away. And the 3 words right now that really matter to me are honesty and acceptance, which seems to be the word that drops out a lot, and gratitude. I feel like being honest with myself allows me to be honest with other people. And accepting the truth and the reality of my situation was what allowed me to move forward with becoming a recovering alcoholic, to tell myself the truth of what the situation is. And I feel like, I hear people, go, oh, acceptance, I'm not going to put up with stuff. Well, it doesn't say put up with. It says accept. And accept means telling the truth about whatever the situation is. And that's not the last sentence in the paragraph. It's, and then what? So I accept that I'm an alcoholic. And now what? I accept that I'm going to go to AA. And, lately I've been going, I go to AA. I'm the key person at PT. I never did 90 at 90. I'm the key person at Practice These Principles, which means I have to go every day and open the door and lock up afterwards. And I kind of discovered that it's sort of fun, which I'm trying not to accept that fact because I might end up going there when I'm not the key person. But, lately I realized I go to AA. I feel like I could probably not drink for a while if I didn't go to meetings. I wouldn't put money on how long that was. But, if I ever need a meeting, I want it to be there. And the only way I can make sure that meeting's going to be there is if I go now when I don't need it. So it's totally selfish. I'm going because I know that someday I'm probably going to need it. And in the meantime, I'm glad you're all here because, you're helping me stay sober, and I can really appreciate that. And that brings me to gratitude, which is I'm really grateful. I'm kind of grateful that I'm an alcoholic. I look at people and I go, oh, it's too bad it's too bad you're not an alcoholic. When COVID happened, I thought, wow, we just kicked into gear and here we are, suddenly all of us, feeling good and being together and, and finding a way to Zoom. And, we survived COVID in a way that a lot of people who didn't have this kind of community weren't able to do. Because we brought to it our understanding about what it takes to be together. And so, I'm grateful at this point that, that after 2 years I went, yeah, I guess I'm an alcoholic. That's no question. And I'm going to be a member. I'm going to put myself in the boat. And I remember when I went to I started out with Practice These Principles, and I don't know if you know Practice These Principles, but it used to meet in a restaurant called Chutney's up on 15th. And so they were, people would sit in the little banquettes and at the tables, and there was a convenient big beam in the middle of the, if you didn't want to be called on, you sat behind the beam. And, and everybody kind of sat there and, always reminded me of red-winged blackbirds. They've all got their space, And I was probably the oldest person in the room. I was a woman, and most of them were guys. They were mostly gay. I was not. And, so I was really different. And I kind of sat on the outside, and it's like, I kind of, my method in all of my life was to sort of creep into a room, scuttle around the edge, and then be kind of pissed that people didn't notice me. And one day I went, Judith, if you're going to come here and you want to be a part of this, you just got to put yourself into it. So I started walking around the room, shaking people's hands and introducing myself. This is like, imagine going into a restaurant, any restaurant here, and you walk in and you go, hi, I'm Judith. I'm an alcoholic. But, after a while, people stood up and I hugged them. And I'm a member of that group now. It's not my home group because I couldn't bear to go to those business meetings. But my home, I do go to the business meetings in my own home group. But I go to that meeting a lot because it's heartfelt. People share who they are. And one day, Greg, the guy who said, when are you going to get a sponsor, said, Judith, when you came in and you started introducing yourself and hugging people, you changed the tone of that meeting. So it wasn't just that I put myself in that meeting. And I didn't know, and I didn't really like to hearing that because, the monster in the basement, feed me. But I'm glad, and we still, people still, they're very welcoming to new people, and and they're friendly, and I just feel like that was my higher power taking a hold of me at that point, because that is not the way I behaved in my real life. Now my real life is this. And I used to say, I felt like the facade was good. Like I say, nobody would have known that I had a problem drinking, or even that I was not there. The facade was good. But there was a facade, and then there was that huge hole between the front and that like little bitter core at the front and top. I've always thought it was a peach pit, the center of me. And when I got sober and started being open and telling the truth, that hole in me closed up. And instead of being HOLE, suddenly it was WHOLE. I was whole. And, it's just shocking to me even still that this has happened to me. So I'm out of time practically, and so I've just to read something. This is on, it says Crossing the River of Denial, and on page 337, and it says, so here I am, sober, serene, successful, just a few of the gifts of the program for surrendering, suiting up, and showing up for life every day. Good days and bad days, reality is a wild ride, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. So thanks for having me here.